Good morning. Welcome to my thought for the day. Today I'm looking at a little passage in 1 Peter chapter 2. We were talking about Peter yesterday. Peter who had denied Jesus and been restored completely and been challenged to feed the sheep of Jesus and to follow him. And he writes about following the example of Jesus in his letter, his first letter, 1 Peter 2. I'm going to start a little earlier than the passage I want to really look at. So bear with me as I read it. I'm starting at verse 18. Servants, be submissive to your masters with all respect, not only to the kind and gentle, but also to the overbearing. For one is approved if, mindful of God, he endures pain while suffering unjustly. For what credit is it if when you do wrong and are beaten for it, you take it patiently? But if when you do right and suffer for it, you take it patiently, you have God's approval. For to this you've been called, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps. He committed no sin, no guile was found on his lips. When he was reviled, he did not revile in return. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but he trusted in him who judges justly. He himself bore our sins in his body on the tree, that we might die to sin and live to righteousness. By his wounds you've been healed. For you were straying like sheep, but have now returned to the shepherd and guardian of your souls. So Paul here is talking, and he's talked about the Christian living in under the authority of the emperor. And of course, at the time when he wrote this, things were very different to the situation we have now, especially in the Western world, where we don't have authoritarian rulers as they did then, but some countries they do. But he's saying here, with the slaves or the servants submitting to their masters, whether they're a good master or a bad master, and he's saying, if you disobey your master and you do something wrong and you're punished for it, well, what credit is it to you if you endure it patiently when you're at fault? But if you've not been at fault and you suffer for it, you have God's approval. So when we are unjustly treated by people, perhaps simply because we're Christians, God sees it. He does see what goes on. He sees it. But what he's concerned more about than anything else is your heart, yours and my heart attitude to what's going on. Our heart attitude to the master or the person who's treated us badly. And he then calls upon us to look at the example of Jesus, who had never done anything wrong, who was wrongly accused of all sorts of things and was punished. There was no guile in him, but he didn't even defend himself. He didn't revile. When he was bad-mouthed, he didn't bad-mouth in return. He didn't in his trial do anything wrong. He was right before God, and he trusted to him who judges justly. And this is what it's about. It's about trusting that whatever situation you're in, even when it feels horrible and you feel you're being treated unjustly, well, you're not suffering any more or less than Jesus did. When he was reviled, he didn't revile in return, but he trusted God. He trusted God in the middle of terrible circumstances. And this is an example to us. We are to follow in his footsteps. And he then says these wonderful things. He himself bore our sins in his own body on the tree, that we might die to sin and live to righteousness. So we must abandon the old life and live to a new standard, to a standard of being like Jesus, because Jesus is the righteousness of God. We are called to a high standard. It's very difficult. Some people think being a Christian is easy, but actually it's not. It's very challenging. because it's supernatural. It's not natural. It's natural to be defensive when you're accused of something. It's natural. It's natural to fight back, to, if you're being accused of doing something, to attack back and say, well, you do worse than I do. And we do that all the time, so that we don't have to look at our own behavior. We point the knife back and stab the person who's attacking us. That's not what Jesus did. By his wounds, you have been healed. Jesus has done everything for our life and godliness, and for our health and wholeness, our health spiritually and our health physically. Praise his name. And then it says, the last verse of that chapter, for you were straying like sheep, but have now returned to the shepherd and guardian of your souls. It's interesting that Peter, who was asked to be, by Jesus, to be one who tends Jesus' sheep, he was asked to feed the sheep. 3 times Jesus asked him to feed the lambs and feed the sheep. But he acknowledges here in this verse that there is one shepherd, the good shepherd. And he says later on, there's a little passage later on in chapter 5, which you can read 1 to 5, chapter 5, where he talks about the leaders of the church being shepherds. And that's true. The leaders of the church are shepherds. They're pastors. They're the ones who care for the sheep, but they don't own the sheep. The sheep belong to the good shepherd. And Peter acknowledges that here. You were straying like sheep, but you've now returned to the shepherd and guardian of your soul. Some translations use the word bishop here because this was in the early, particularly in the 1600s, when the King James Bible was written, they put in the word bishop because that was how the church was organized at that time, into shepherds, pastors, and overseers who were called bishops. This word does mean, the word translated here, guardian, does mean overseer, inspector, watcher, guardian. And that is the role of Jesus, ultimately, over all his sheep. The overseer, the inspector, the watcher, the guardian, the good shepherd, who cares for his sheep. The Lord is my shepherd. And the one who guards, the one who shepherds, and the one who guards. A dual role. Jesus, that despised and rejected of men, who became the most important person, the shepherd. And Peter acknowledges Jesus as the good shepherd and the guardian of our souls. So whatever's happening in your life, you can know today that the guardian of your soul, the shepherd, the good shepherd, is watching out for you. He is providing for you. He's making a way for you. He is on your side. He's sorting out things on your behalf. Sometimes it seems that it takes forever. And I think we are greatly affected by the fact that our world is a much more instant world than the world they lived in. I mean, we can order something today and it'll come tomorrow. We have instant payment. We have instant funds. We have instant, and we're not used to the slower pace of life that they experienced here, when it took a long time to get news of different places, and these letters took a long time to go around. And we're used to instant answers, but we have to be patient and trust. Use our faith to trust that God has not forgotten us, that he is working on our behalf. And sometimes he has to do a lot of background work before the answer can come through to us. So it's an exercise of faith to trust when we can't see. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.